Welcome back to Geeks and Grounds, everyone, a monthly game club and weekly podcast where we play games and brew good conversation together. I'm your host, Jenny Wyndham.
And I'm Joel Thomas.
And did you remember your promise, Joel?
My promise?
Yeah, did you remember your promise?
Uh-oh. What was my promise?
Uh-oh. I think we're going to be in for a ride then today.
Uh-oh. What did I forget?
I'm referring, I don't know if you're...
the game.
Yes, yeah.
I have forgotten my promise. It's almost like my biology isn't resonating quite the way that it should be. And
interesting.
I'm eager to dig into what I would consider one of the most challenging endings to a game I've ever played.
That makes me so excited.
Intellectually challenging, to be clear. I had this set up to easy mode, so the end of the game was actually not too bad.
Hey, that's great. You love to hear it, honestly. I'm like,
for a Joel, we're cruising.
Bravo. I'm so excited. So for folks who are new to the podcast, or if you need a reminder, this month we have been playing Signalis. We have gone through it a little bit more quickly than other games or most months with our games because the final week of this month we're dedicating to Steam Next Fest. So next week's episode dedicated to demos. So today we are going to be talking through basically midway-ish sort of through the game all the way to the ending, full spoiler cast, our thoughts, feelings, points of confusion. There are going to be many, and I cannot wait to get into all of that with you. Yeah,
my word.
Yeah. So many words, but a lot of them, literally, I was looking at my notes and I wrote what in all caps like 4 different times, and I wrote WTF like 5. So it's a lot of confusion and reaction in my journal.
It's going to be rich fodder, and I know that. So for everyone who doesn't know, we have a monthly hangout with the community, and this month we're going to solve all of these problems. We're going to answer every question. There will be no confusion about this game after the monthly hang.
I am genuinely so excited. I'm always excited for the hangouts. They're so much fun every month, but I feel like especially we have a group of folks who are very Signalis like expert, I would say. They have the lore knowledge, they've played the game before, and so I feel like this will be a really great discussion just specifically because we have folks who are very knowledgeable about this game. So I'm excited. And as we talk and you hear us saying things that may be wrong according to the lore and your theories, just
forgive. Please forgive.
I just see the I'm sorry flashing in the red screen.
What I would love
just
is
like in Signalis.
If everyone could just have the comments section of the podcast or the YouTube open, and every time we say something wrong, just put timestamp correction, because I've never felt less certain about what I'm about to talk about on this show than this game.
I feel like I have like little, again, we talked last week about how I feel like a lot of the beginning of this game and the middle of this game we're absorbing language, vocabulary, just like sponges. And I was like, eventually I think we're going to have answers. And I think we have a few. I do think I figured out a few things, but there are some questions where I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea. And I have theories, but I don't feel like they're super grounded in much more than vibes. And that's never a great thing. So yeah, I'm excited though. I think we'll have a lot of good stuff to talk about.
Yes.
Before that, though, we're going to head to the pastry case. Every week, our pastry case is the grab bag of topics, little snacks of things that we've been watching, playing, reading, engaging with that are outside of our monthly brew. So I've got my coffee. I'm ready. Really, I wanted to talk first about the topic of show, which is Steam Next Fest. We are going to be diving into demos and how we liked them, what we would love to highlight next week. But just to prime everybody, last the last few Next Fests. We've also taken community voicemails and comments and read them out loud on the show for things that you all enjoyed. So I want to talk about Steam Next Fest, just what it is, and also highlight some of the things that we're excited to play as we get into the week. Yeah, Joel, this is like your third Steam Next Fest,
It's
I
my
feel
third
like.
Steam Next Fest, and I'm going to be honest, I feel a little bit betrayed because I don't know about what to be excited about. And so I spent
Mm-hmm.
time scrolling through all the demos for Next Fest, trying to come to things that seemed pretty exciting to me based on like the quick video and images that you
Mm-hmm.
get. So I have the top 4 games that I have downloaded demos for. I'm going to dig into.
Mm-hmm.
But just to be clear, I very much benefit from the Geeks and Grounds community when it comes to Steam Next Fest telling me things to be excited about. So don't let this 4-game list stop you from sending recommendations. I desperately need them.
Mm-hmm.
So shall
Well,
I?
and
Yeah, go ahead.
Steam isn't known for, I think this is a great thing to highlight because Steam isn't known for its curative and curation abilities. I think
Mm-hmm.
Steam is a big like soup pot where everyone kind of throws in their ingredients and you hope you can like taste the flavors of what's going on. I feel like they have added elements where if you know how to use their filters, you have a higher chance at finding things that you might resonate with. But it is really hard. I will recommend if you are totally uncertain, you're like, I have no idea where to go, I don't know what, like I put in some filters, it's still I don't know. The things that I like to look at, they have up on the top of the page or close-ish to the top, like maybe right under the header, the tab called like I think it's most wish listed, top trending downloads of the day, like most players, something like that, where it highlights the things that a lot of people are really engaging with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, on the first day, it's usually like such a crapshoot. You never know
Yeah.
because it's like the data is so new. But especially by the time that everyone hears this, I think things will have sort of like shifted up to the top. And so you at least have a starting point that seems like everyone's getting the word around about certain games. Um, and you can start there. That's a great place to begin if you're just like, I have no idea what I'm looking for. So,
That is a
yeah.
great idea for curation. I hope. I mean, I've only been using Steam for like 2 years, really, for as long as the podcast has been around.
Yeah.
So that's super helpful advice. Maybe even more Steam tips would be a good thing for a Joel to learn in general.
Yeah. But
Hmm.
sorry, I interrupted. What are some, when you did, which I think is kind of more fun and the way I like to do it, the manual search where you're just like going through,
Just
seeing what,
infinite scrolling and
see what
what's
strikes your
grabbing you.
fancy. There's over 2,700 games demoing this time, which is more, I think that's
Whoa.
the most or one of the highest numbers. So when I say there's like no curation, it truly is like you have a game that you want to participate and it hasn't participated in a previous Steam Next Fest, sure. As
What
long as you have a demo,
I need
go for it.
Steam to start checking my browser cookies like every other website does so that it can direct me towards the
Yeah.
things that I will likely like. So should I read kind of the Steam page description of each of
Yeah.
these things? Would that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. So I got 4 that I found that I was pretty excited about. I haven't played any of these yet. The first one is Chrono Sword. Chrono Sword is a somber Souls-like action RPG uniquely crafted around time travel, stepping beyond the limits of pixel graphics. Players travel between past and future to uncover the complicated truths of the destruction of this world, all set within this beautiful, intricately crafted realm. Um,
Mm.
the art style of this kind of pixel top down but like kind of offset at like a diamond shaped map angle, I just thought it looked really cool, and I
Yeah.
thought it had like an interesting souls like vibe. But souls likes are always a crapshoot. You never really know what you're gonna get.
It looks gorgeous though. I really like how this one looks.
Yes, the next one is Steampunks, which had a really cool character design, and the video they have on the demo page is like very, very cool. Inspired by SNES 90s classics like Mega Man X 1 through 3, Super Metroid, and Link to the Past, Steampunks mixes elements from the classics into a lore rich adventure with some modern twists. Unlock items and power ups and discover secrets and lore. Oh, sorry. The developer for Steampunks is Ash Jackson, Monster Robot Studios. The creators of Chronosword, the developer is 21C Ducks Company, and publisher is CFK Company Limited. So yeah, this one I think this Steampunks looks very fun.
Yeah.
I really like the art style a lot.
I'm Mega Man is super fun. Link to the Past is super fun. I actually never really played Super Metroid, but I love Metroidvanias, and so this looks really, really cool. It's got a very like cartoony
Yeah.
um aesthetic to it, so I think that's really fun. And they have some really good gifs on their Steam page.
Yes. The next one, I think, is going to be a bit of a swing for me. It is called 2ME. Offers a surreal alter ego experience, allowing a single player to control
Mm.
both giant and mini avatars simultaneously, switching between two-sized characters, collaborating with myself, passing multi-scaled 3D puzzles, all in a beautiful 2.5D platformer. This is developed and published both by N51 Atelier.
Oh man, this looks like a brain bender. Just looking at some of this, is I can tell this will be a good one. In
Yeah.
terms of like if you like puzzles, yeah.
Also, kind of some interesting kind of architectural elements to the background and
Hmm.
backdrop designs. It has kind of an unrefined look to it. Like this is something you are seeing. Like this might actually just be the aesthetic, right? But like it looks like, oh, you're looking at a half rendered world and you're kind of
Hmm.
navigating through it.
Yeah, that's
And
cool.
the last one, major departure from games Joel typically plays, but it looked extremely cute. It is called Cats and Dice, a rogue-like dice building game where the goal is to achieve crazy combos and attain as high a score as you possibly can. Your cats not only generate dice with special effects, but also come with unique abilities that can change the course of a run. Master the synergy between cats and dice to win. This is developed and published by Young Just Young.
Nice.
Here
This
we
is
go.
like I feel like you've been getting into Balatro, and I feel like it's not a card game, but I feel like there's a thread happening here, and it's I feel like Balatro, maybe it's a gateway to this
Yeah,
one.
maybe. And I will say, like, we've talked about this, almost a year ago, but
Hmm.
the deck building game and or not a year, it's like 6 months ago. The deck building game in Final Fantasy VII,
Oh yeah.
Queen's Blood. I think I'm kind of getting into this genre in a way I've never been into before, and so I think, yeah, between
Yeah.
that and Balatro, I've got a couple things that are pushing me forward here.
Yeah. Oh, we got to get you playing Dicey Dungeons, actually. If you want like a good dice roguelite kind of game, Dicey Dungeons.
Dicey Dungeons.
It's got great art too.
Cool. Yeah. So how about you? What are you
Yeah.
getting into?
This is great. I will say I love that I think a lot of these are games that like I hadn't had on my radar, so I'm super excited to also I've just been downloading them as you've been talking. So I'm excited to play these as well. These are really cool, especially Cats and Dice. I think that's maybe the one that's caught my eye the most.
Very cool.
Yeah. Well, I've also gone through and picked out, I have 5 highlights. I will, I downloaded 40 demos. I, there is no chance that I will be getting through them all, but basically, my hope is this week anytime I have a spare moment, I'm just going to hop in and try a demo, if even if it's for 10 minutes, and see how it goes. But the 5 that I am most excited about, that I knew were coming or was like pretty sure they're going to have a demo, the first one is Wilmot Works It Out, which is sort of this spiritual sequel to Wilmot's Warehouse. It's just a puzzle game. It's just you make puzzles and you hang them up on your fictional house wall, and it's so cute and good.
Aw.
I'm very excited. I played this demo during PAX, and so I am assuming it'll be the same one, but I don't really care. I just loved the tactile nature of this game, and like sorting stuff out felt so good. I'm excited to go back in. It just says Wilmot Works It Out is a puzzle building game about completing beautiful images and using them to decorate the walls of your house.
It is so funny. Like, I never think of, like, when I hear the word puzzles in games, I never associate with a literal, like,
Like,
image puzzle that you're breaking apart and putting together.
right?
But that's what we're doing here, baby.
Yeah, and it's developed by Hollow Pond's Richard Hogg and published by Finji. So good crew there. I also have Sorry We're Closed, which is one I've been looking for a minute now. This is definite different tonal shift. Bit of whiplash. It's
Oh,
Akupara Games is the publisher. The developer is A La Mode Games. The Steam description says Sorry We're Closed is a nostalgic single player survival horror game with rich lore, deep characters, and multiple endings. So great. If we are in a mood for more horror after Signalis,
mm-hmm.
there's a demo for you. Explore unsettling locations with fixed camera angles. Hell yeah. Fight in first person with demonic weapons and open your third eye to see between worlds, uncover secrets, and solve puzzles. So it just looks like, okay, you made an audible like ooh. So what is it that made you make that sound when you were looking at the Steam page here?
So for it reminds me of kind of like that PlayStation 2 look and feel.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that made me go ooh was the very sexiness, like sexy forward vibes of this horror game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got this like kind of dirty, grungy punk kind of feel and
Yeah.
vibe to it that just is so like really tantalizing because I feel like in horror you don't get vibrancy very often and it's a vibrant game.
Yeah, that's exactly it. What a great way to say
Yeah.
that. Mm.
Yeah, it's just it looks good. And yeah, it looks so different and weird and creepy in all the best ways. So yeah, that's Sorry We're Closed. This one, a few people in the server called this out. Scarlet Citizen Sleeper 2 has a demo available. And they're keeping it available until October, what did they say? October 21st, which I think is a little bit past, or maybe that is the day the Steam Next Fest ends. I think it's either the day or one day extra. But if folks are excited about, more Citizen Sleeper, we played it just a few months ago. This is a tabletop inspired RPG in a human and heartfelt sci fi world. You, once again, are an escaped android with a malfunctioning body, a price on your head, and no memory of your past. Get a ship, find a crew, and take on contracts while you navigate across the Starward Belt. So, yeah, so it
Interesting.
seems like you are in the same universe. We don't know if it's in this same time as Citizen Sleeper, the future, the past, what have you, but it looks like we are actually getting to travel in this version of the game, which I am so excited about.
Looks crisp.
Yeah, it does. I know a few folks mentioned they were gonna just since they knew they were gonna play it, they're like, I don't even need to play the demo. But yeah, if you're either itching for more Citizen Sleeper or you just don't know if you are into Citizen Sleeper and want to try Citizen Sleeper 2, I would say give it a shot.
I mean, the cover
Um,
does have a cat on it,
it
so
does. Honestly, I was like that. They know what the priorities are, and so I have full trust in this game. I'm very excited to play. Um, I feel like these tonally are kind of all over the place. So moving from sci-fi cyberpunk to kind of emotional adventure platformer,
mm,
Scarlet Deer Inn, which is hand embroidered. They actually do the embroidery by hand, and I think they scan it and like upload it, and that's how they do all of the animation. It's an embroidered narrative platformer with an emotional story, interesting cast of characters, and a dark dungeon full of monsters, and a world inspired by Slavic folklore. The only thing protecting you from death is your torch, like actual fire torch, and all character images are actually embroidered.
that
I
is
mean,
wild.
it's beautiful. I
It is
am so
gorgeous.
excited. It looks like you're chasing this like gremlin elf kind of character, at least in a lot of their trailer footage.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And I don't know. I'm always really here for when we get to blend different artistic mediums into games. And the number of crafting games I have seen over the last year, like either craft adjacent or using crafting as like the art medium, has been awesome.
They also have like images, the videos on the Steam page. Like, even if y'all are not going to play this game, they
Hmm.
have little mini clips and videos of them like embroidering the characters. That is incredible. That is
Yeah.
absolutely stunning. Wow.
Ugh, yeah, people are talented. People are really talented, y'all. Um, and the last one I wanted to highlight for just my initial top five is Rooster, which is developed. Oh, and I guess I forgot to mention who did Scarlet Deer in. It is developed and published by Atu Games. Rooster is developed and published by Sticky Brain Studios. And golly, this just looks so lovely. It's a heartfelt, story rich, casual puzzle adventure celebrating the best of ancient Chinese culture. You'll experience and explore a hand drawn world with delightful surprises from cooking, finding hidden objects, paper crafting, and more. And the story is you will guide Rooster in a rewarding tale about family and love. I think because we did feature this in Wholesome Direct, I think a year ago, or maybe this last Wholesome Direct. But it's basically like the 12 animals of the Chinese zodiac. They're hanging out for the New Year's Eve party, Lunar New Year.
Oh, fun.
And Rooster is kind of like causing a ruckus. And so basically, Rooster has to learn the spirit of Lunar New Year. And so I'm just very excited to try this one.
That's very cool. On a journey of redemption.
Yes, exactly. We love character growth, so we're here for it. And yeah, I don't think this one looks like it's going to be like super deep or super complicated in its mechanics, but I think it just looks like a really charming story. So I'm very excited to play it.
Awesome.
Yeah. And so if you would like your voice or your words to be featured potentially in next week's podcast, and you've got a demo that you've played that you would like to highlight and recommend, shout out for everyone to keep an eye on, wishlist the game, leave us a voicemail at sayhi.chat/geeks and grounds, or just send a message back to the newsletter, and we will do our best to get you into the next podcast episode.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Joel, what else? We've been prepping for demos, but what have you been
Hmm.
engaging with before we dive into the demo fest?
Not no new games this week. Just a couple forms of media. With being down with the sickness, as Disturbed would
Mm.
say.
Mm-hmm.
I have not been able to mentally get up and do much, but I did. I've been trying to like get back into some physical books and readings. So I did get through the Adventure Zone: The Suffering Game graphic novel that was released a little over a month ago. If I'm a huge fan of the Adventure Zone podcast, it's like the thing that got me like deeply into D&D, and this is a graphic novel adaptation of their first major story arc, and it has been really great. Like each of the graphic novels has been great, and this one in particular, I think they just really captured the tone of the show because it kind of gets serious in this one in a way.
Mm.
So if you're into the Adventure Zone, would highly recommend it. If you're into like just good fantasy storytelling, but not looking for like a heavy tome of a book, check out the
Mm-hmm.
first graphic novel and see if it grabs you. Like, I think there's a lot of humor and interesting adventure and storytelling there.
Heck yeah.
And then last night, I just started Yumi and the Night Painter by Brandon Sanderson. I've had this on my
Mm-hmm.
bedside table for a while now. And I've kind of gotten past, or I'm trying to get past my like physical book distance so that I can re-engage. And
Mm-hmm.
it was just like, I forgot how soothing it is to like read a book
Yeah.
before you try to fall asleep at night, at least for me.
Yep.
And the opening couple chapters were really engaging. So I'm interested to see where it goes.
Nice. Yeah, that one is actually on my bedside table as well. It's beautiful, so
Mm.
it's like this lovely decoration, but yeah, I keep thinking, "Oh, this is the night. I'll read it." And then I get distracted, unfortunately.
It
But
makes
I'm
sense.
excited. I'm excited to see how you like it. Cuz that was one of the four like secret books that he just wrote
Just
cuz he
wrote.
was like, I had nothing to do while on lockdown. I guess I'll write 4 books for fun. And I was like, I literally did nothing. I like was not productive in that way. Um, and I admit, did you ever read? It was like The Wizard. Oh, what was that other one called? The
Oh,
one
like
that I said I
Wizard
didn't.
Survival Guide to something
Yeah,
something. I never
I would.
did. What'd you think?
I didn't like it.
You haven't come around on it. Okay.
No, I tried rereading it, and I think it's like it's hard for me because I dislike the main character so much. I cannot tell if it's me disliking the character and that's just turning me off from the book. I think I actually don't like the style of writing that he does in the book.
Mm.
And like the directions the story takes. I think it's just kind of like not for me, but I need someone else to read it who I actually know and trust
Okay.
because I would love to like have someone to bounce ideas off of. So I can't wait till
Well,
you eventually get to that one in your Sanderson
I
marathon.
I have an Audible credit waiting for me, so maybe I'll take I'll, after I finish Oathbringer, which is my current audiobook move. I'll
Hmm.
take a break from that and pop over, and the Survival Guide will be my next book, so that we can.
Yeah.
I'll give it. It's an audiobook, so it's like the best chance I can give it for how the story is.
Yeah, who knows? And yeah, maybe it'll like be much better if you have someone reading it to you, like emoting some of it, you know?
Yeah, who's to say?
Who's to
Uh,
say?
but what have you been getting into aside from a game that I've been looking forward to for months and months and months and months and months?
Oh, wait, I didn't know you were looking forward to. Wait, are you talking about Metaphor?
No.
No. Okay.
I
Oh, the other yes, okay. Yes. So as far as games go, and this is funny because I know couple of folks and especially the ones who I'm friends with on Steam. I don't mean to do this, but I see, what people are playing and I see a lot of people playing this game, the new Atlas RPG, Metaphor Refantazio. And I will admit, I'm fully prepared to admit and eat my words. I was making fun of this game. I will admit it. I was like, this title is ridiculous. It's another anime RPG. How good could it be? I was just like, whatever. And everyone was playing it. So I was like, you know what? I'll download the demo. And oh my God, the music like slapped me in the face. Like that's how hard it slapped. It just like slapped me in the face. It was so good. If nothing else, listen to the soundtrack because whoever did the music for this game, they need to keep doing it. It's just outlandishly good. It's so good.
It's
Um
called Metaphor.
Refantazio.
Okay, prologue demo. Is that what's out now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Well, and the full game is out now, so if you dive into the demo, it's like a 6-hour long demo. If you're into it, you should just get the game because I think if you play 6 hours of anything, you probably are generally into it. um, but this game, I guess, let me read the Steam description because I am still early enough in the game that I feel like there's probably a lot going on that I haven't picked up on yet. It says the throne sits empty after the king's assassination. With no heirs, the will of the late king decrees that the next monarch will be elected by the people, and thus begins your fight for the throne. So this game, in a very, at least at the start, 101 level, is introducing these ideas of tribalism, these sort of fantasy races, and like political struggles for power and prejudice, and how all of that intersects. And in an election year, I feel like it's pretty poignant. Even though in a video game form it's very 101, I'm just like, whoa, okay, this is stuff that I'm thinking about right now. Um, and at its core, it's just a fantasy RPG. You're leveling up, you're fighting. And what I know is going to happen is like you also have the elements of day and time. So,
Mm.
like, you have missions that you have to complete within certain amounts of time to ostensibly get maybe better endings. I'm not entirely sure. Um, it's just been a joy to play. And I was telling Sam that it gave me the feeling that I wanted to get from Final Fantasy 16, in
Mm.
terms of like this RPG that feels epic and impactful and like I don't know, melodramatic in just the right ways.
Yeah.
I feel like it was because Final Fantasy 16 for me ended up not hitting the notes that I wanted it to. And part of it is hard because I know Final Fantasy for me has like very specific expectations as someone who has grown up with the series. So, you know, they're fighting a bit of an uphill battle
Yeah,
with me and a
that's
lot of the fan base.
100% true.
But it was really exciting to play Metaphor and feel like I was getting what I had hoped to get out of Final Fantasy 16.
Is it turn-based?
So that's what's interesting. And for folks who are Atlas fans, I don't know if this is like something that happens in all like Persona and Shin Megami Tensei. I don't know if this is what happens in all of those games, but you have like hack and slash, like enemies are live on the field, you know, as you're running around. You can hack and slash engage with them, but you also can basically hit a button and put it into a turn-based battle. So you
Hmm.
have like kind of this best of both worlds situation. I don't know. It's been really fun. I have had a really, really good time with it. So I'm just excited to play more. And who knows, maybe a few more hours in I'll get tired, but it's giving me what I need right now.
You know, stylistically, it reminds me a lot of Fire Emblem, the Three Houses game that we played a few years back.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, very like it's yeah, definite like anime vibes. Lots of anime cutscenes, you know, revenge, drama. Like it's got that energy for sure.
Love
Um,
it.
yeah, I don't have you played Persona or any of those games?
I did a demo of Persona 5 several years ago, but
Mm,
the demo didn't quite grab me. But I
yeah.
have some friends. I have a lot of trusted friends that are big fans of those genres and series, but I just haven't
Yeah.
played them myself.
Yeah, no, same here. I just know that like Atlas, the publisher or the developer, they're known like for Persona. And so everyone's like, this is Persona, but not in high school. And I was like, all right, that's kind of cool.
They like.
So yeah, I've been really having fun with it. I finished Echoes of Wisdom, and I will say it was a joy to play. I personally, the nostalgia for like Link's Awakening and like Majora's Mask still holds really strong for
Mm.
me, but I think like it was just like fun from beginning to end. I really enjoyed it. I say it's like definitely an integral part of the Zelda canon universe for me now. Um, and the other game that I've played is Neva, which I know you've been looking forward to, and it just
So long.
released today, the day of our recording. Um, Gosh, I'm not gonna get too far into it because I know that you're gonna be playing it, so I don't want to spoil. But it made me cry, like ugly cry, a couple times. Beautiful. It's like what you would expect from the folks who made Grease. It's like if you liked Grease, you're probably gonna like this game. The only thing I'll note, it has combat. The combat was actually like I found myself having to redo encounters a decent amount of times.
Mm.
Like I was telling you right before the show started, I think there was only one boss battle that I fought and won without having to restart it. Most of them I had to restart at least once, sometimes twice. One of them probably 5 or 6 times because I was just so bad at dodging. Um, there is a story mode essentially, so you can do a story mode
Yes.
where you don't have to take damage and you just like do the
Yes.
bosses without having to worry about it. But if you want I think they call it adventure mode. That's when you have like the a little bit more challenging combat. Um, and it's not that challenging. It's like such a quick reload. It just makes you like have to restart the battle. So yeah, I really liked it. I'm very excited for you to play, and maybe we'll talk about it some more later.
I cannot wait.
Yeah. And that is the notable release for this week. Neva came out on the 15th. Today is the 15th of our recording, at least. And it's on PC, Mac, PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch. Actually, I think it's only on PC. Sorry, I misspoke on the Mac. It's on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch. So, yeah, be sure to leave us a voicemail. Again, say hi.chat/geeks and grounds or visit geeksandgrounds.com to sign up for the newsletter. Get all of this stuff in your inbox every week.
Yes, and definitely let us know what you're playing in Steam Next Fest. Hop in the Discord.
Yeah. Yep.
So, there's this game.
Yep.
It's called Signalis. And
Octung.
everything beyond that I'm not certain about. Shall we discuss? Shall we discuss this game?
Yes. Okay. So, again, just a quick reminder for everyone, we have already started discussing this game. We're going to be starting from approximately I would say when we're at the right after seeing Falk. I think that's kind of where we ended the discussion last week. We're going to be talking about that through the ending. Because we're going through the ending, this is a full spoiler cast. So anything from any point in the game, we're just going to be talking about it because we are going in with the full knowledge of the ending, or at least what we think we
And
know
ending.
of an ending.
Yes.
Um, yeah. So, God, where do we even start? I mean, again, reminding ourselves of like, what do we think, at least at this point in our game, our purpose is? Our goal is still to find her. And I
Mm-hmm.
think the biggest question for me at this point was just, I still have no idea who her is. I don't know who she is, and I don't know who we're looking for.
Yeah.
Because the game throws a couple options to us, and we don't know which one is actually it, or if all of them are it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think where my strong hypothesis was going into this week was uh, because Adler threw us down the elevator shaft after looking at the picture that we are looking for Issa, the kind of brunette Replika, maybe, or Gestalt, couldn't really tell.
Mm-hmm.
And that's who I was kind of convinced going into this week that I was looking for. And now I do think I know who we're looking for. I feel relatively confident about that based on the ending.
Yeah.
But it was such a journey to get from like the point of like, oh, you're trying to look for this person. I'm shoving you down an elevator shaft to like where you get with the very end of this game for who you're actually looking for and what's going on, and
Right.
what a journey.
Right. Well, and I think for me, I don't think I ever felt like we were looking for Issa, because Issa was always looking for, we find out, Erica, um, who we learn is her sister. And I think I was always confused on if we were looking for, is it Ariana? Let me see.
Yeah, I think
Um,
Ariana is the name that we learn during this section.
yes, I think I was confused on if we were looking for Alina, who we've been reading all these diary entries for, who's in the photograph, but also Alina is in one photograph, and um, gosh,
Ariana.
Ariana or Arena,
Oh, is
and
it Arena?
their names sound, or it's Ariane. I think their names
I
sound so
read it
familiar
as
too.
Ariana in my head every single time, but we can say
Okay,
Ariane. That's fine.
Aria, I think because it's spelled Ariane. Ariane. We'll say Ariane. Is
Sure.
that what you
Yeah,
said?
that's
Yeah,
great.
Ariane. Um, I think Ariane and Alina, the names are so similar. In my head, it made it more confusing for me. But those are the
Yeah.
two the entire time. I was like, are we looking for Ariana or are we looking for Alina? And who are we? Because there's this sort of removal of identity. Like we know we're in Elster, but I don't know if we're like a Elster in an ocean of
Mm-hmm.
however many Elsters, or if we're the Elster, or if there are two the Elsters. You know what I mean? It's just there's so much here. Um,
So we made it through the Falk part of the conversation
yes.
last week, and I think we started talking about the diary that you find, Adler's diary in his office last
Mm-hmm.
time, where you like learn he's going through mental degradation
Yeah.
and like keeps writing the same date down over and over again. He has a line in his diary that's like, "In the mind, something calls," and uh, the next thing that we see after reading his diary is a cutscene where Adler is in what looks to be a mine, and a woman that looks to be, in my perspective, Issa,
Yes.
stabs him and kicks him down like 300 style. This is Sparta, kicks him down a giant hole in the
Yes.
cave. What?
Yeah. And so at this point, I'm like, Adler is actively trying to stop us, both Issa and us, Elster, from finding the people we're looking for. And I'm like, I don't know. I think ultimately by the time we finish the game, I don't think he's doing it to be a villain. But I do think he is corrupted, and his like he's a replica, so he is similar where he has a function and his function is lost. And I think in this corruption, like this is the function that his programming is interpreting for himself, is this like stopping of this search. um but
I'm
yeah,
not convinced there's much free will happening in this
no,
game.
yeah, I think there is. Yeah, yeah.
So let's
So
kind of talk about this mine. So we go down kind of this Evangelion style elevator down into the mine section.
mhm,
Uh, Everything is uh, at this phase very much like metal walls in construction. Like these are refined tunnels.
mhm.
Um, and kind of my understanding at this phase is like, I wonder if I'm trying to like navigate to the hole that I just saw in this cutscene.
Right.
What was your experience kind of going through this kind of more refined part of the cave or of the mine?
The mines. Okay, so I wrote it's interesting that we move to like it feels much more isometric-y. So like we go from having this sort of like
Mm-hmm.
2D flat, more flat perspective, even though it's 3D, into we're like now moving at diagonal
Everything's
angles.
angled.
It feels bigger. Um, I drew the Penrose triangle because I was in for a split second, and I was like, I could not. There was no map, so I was like, I also could not keep
Mm.
track of where we were
How
going.
dare
But
they? We gave them the Geeks and Grounds shout out for their map creation
I
last
know
episode, and then they rip it
they
away first
pulled it
thing.
away from us. But I was thinking, I'm like, the fact that we're moving at these diagonals got me thinking about the Penrose triangle and these like the endless staircase, that like
That's good.
optical illusion.
That's really good.
Going back to this theme of cycles and cyclical and like never ending, um, just structures that we keep seeing here. Um, and yeah, I thought this part was some of the scariest encounters for me happened here
Mm.
because I felt like the enemies just moved faster. I don't know if it's because I was just more scared, but I felt like they were more aggro here. Um, and I guess this may be moving ahead, but we see like Alina's diary entries. There's like more showing that she's like identifying the degradation of what's happening at the mines. Like people are sick, something's wrong with the proctors, or protectors. And so we see just more evidence of like the sickness infiltrating even in the depths of the mines. We also meet, what was it? I forget how you pronounced it. Is it the Mina?
Minya.
Minya. We meet a Minya with a name. And it's like,
Bio.
yeah,
Bayo.
Bio. And she was like, it was maybe the first encounter where I was like, oh my gosh, you don't like you kind of see me a little bit, whereas the
Yeah.
others did not. And I thought that was maybe one of the more striking moments, especially at the start of the mind area.
You know, also you mentioned the diary. I have a note here that like in the diary, Alina is explicitly looking for Elster, which is like, what?
Right. And it doesn't make sense.
Why though?
You're
Here?
right. Why?
So there, yeah, like lots of interesting things there. I
Hmm.
agree with your take on Bio. Also, you see the Star and you
Yes.
kind of saying goodbye to each other. They one of them remembers their name from their old life, which kind of
Yeah,
raises questions again
Stardust.
about like gestalts and replicas and what's going on there. But like there were some really humanizing moments in this part of the mind. Maybe some of the
Yeah.
last humanizing moments actually.
Yeah, I think the moment between Star and the Yule honestly got me a little bit choked up. I was really like, this sort of tragic love story is the sense that I got. Like we were witnessing the end of a love story and it was not a happy
Hmm.
one. The Star is saying like, I'll tell you this secret, the old name that I remember, and wherever I wrote down, wherever we go, I'll meet you there. And I was like, that is That is tragic.
Yeah.
And it got me choked up. And it was interesting to me though that Star, again, it's like Star has the name Star. Yule is still called just by their like replicant
Yeah.
uh edition. I forget, like
Mm-hmm.
model. So that was just an interesting point. Um, we then, after exploring the, is there anything else in the mines before the
The
next
jump
like
down.
flash? Yeah,
Yeah.
that we have. I think that was it. And then you jump down further. Literal descent into madness. My goodness. Um, and we are at like uh, I couldn't tell if it. I assumed it was maybe like a lakefront. Um, because there wasn't like super intense waves. And we have a red screen with a countdown. It's
The
just like,
timer's
what?
at 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Yeah, the beach was wild. Like, it's nighttime. You can kind of
Mm-hmm.
see some cliffs off in the distance. And at least I went left on the beach and
Mm-hmm.
found a bunch of pages and a cover of The Yellow King, the book.
Yeah.
Is that what was your experience on the beach?
Yeah, that was, I think I wrote countdown. I think I had not a 0, 0, 0. I had like a 5 minute countdown. Um, and I couldn't tell and I didn't actually time it, but I was like, did I actually only spend, because you are exploring the beach and then it like just kind of like stops you. And I was like, is that actually 5 minutes? Or was that just like, the screen
Oh,
just being flashy
interesting.
again?
Maybe I missed the first countdown and I just saw the second one. But so what's interesting is like
Yeah.
the second I picked up the Yellow King book is when my beach flash ended. So I
Yeah.
assume that's what
Interesting.
triggered it, but it might have been a timer. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, because I was able to, I think mine did not end when I picked up the King in Yellow. So I think that may have actually been a timer.
Hmm.
I also, the thing that I assumed was we kept seeing, and even in the newsletter I sent, and I think we've talked about the Isle of the Dead painting. And in my head, I think the first thought I had was like, are we in this painting? Are we hanging out close to, adjacent to, on the Isle of the Dead? I don't know, but that is the big question I had, and I just wasn't sure.
Hmm.
And we flashed back, and so before I really had a time to think about it, we were gone.
And you're in the creepiest cave I've ever seen in any form of
Yes,
media ever.
yes. Um, Yeah. Oh my gosh. This is where things get real red and fleshy. I feel like I wrote flesh so many times in my notes here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just gets real fleshy.
It was interesting too, like there seemed to be some parallelism happening here on this level of the mine and the ship up above or whatever that you were
Yes.
exploring.
Yep.
And there seemed to be like the music changes, like everything feels like it's slightly off kilter. And it definitely
Yeah.
gave me that kind of like the mountains of madness kind of thing. Like, is
Yep.
anything that I'm experiencing down here real? That was like
Yeah.
my overall sense down here.
I had a few questions because we had things that were like, this is where it also gets a bit not weirdly spiritual, but it was unexpectedly like we started seeing things like offerings. We
Hmm.
start seeing references to things like the sarcophagi and like incense and sort of ancestor worship and like all of these sort of elements that I'm just like I don't know why all of a sudden they're happening, but they're here. And I also wrote down, why would a classroom be in a mine? And I was like, we have rooms here that don't make sense unless they have, like, why would they have a classroom down there?
Everything about the mine element of this has been strange to me from the beginning,
Yeah.
and I feel like it's just all the more pronounced in this section.
Mm-hmm.
uh the artifacts that you start finding around are also very different. Like,
Yeah.
they seem to be almost more personal. Like, you find a wedding ring and these wooden
Mm-hmm.
dolls and things like that. It's just like these artifacts feel
Yeah.
different than the kind of puzzle based artifacts up above.
Yeah. They do seem really personal, and I think especially with Star and the Yule and their like promise to one another, the talk about promises even with
Mm.
us, like we're trying to remember a promise that we have. We have this wedding ring, which is a symbol of a promise that people make together. So yeah, I
Oh,
think the
that's
arc,
good. That's
yeah.
really good, Jenny.
I
Wow.
feel like we're getting into, I think, what is perhaps some of the core of what we're gonna be like trying to get to the core of what we're really doing here, but it's still so vague in a lot of ways that it's just like how are we piecing out all of these like sort of random items, because we're also like each of these items eventually take us to plates and we're like collecting a bunch of plates that
Mm-hmm.
have themes that we're dealing with. But before we really collect the plates, we see someone, and this is where things start really just like I feel like I'm running down a hill and I cannot catch up, you know?
Yes, I fully agree with that sentiment.
Yeah.
There's like you go through kind of a mini boss battle
Yep.
to get this kind of like centipede-esque baddies. Uh, and you're just like taking up time fighting while you wait for Issa, who is in the boss battle arena trying to load a shotgun or a rifle of some kind.
Yeah.
And whenever the timer runs out or you do enough damage, she shoots the baddie and is
Yeah.
then knocked out, soap opera style.
Yeah.
And then like the screen flashes and you're in like you get like a weird cutscene. Like there's all these arms reaching out. Like it reminded me of Full Metal Alchemist when the arms are reaching out of the door of
Yeah.
truth kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Oh man.
I was so angry at this part, to be honest. So, like, you finish the boss battle and you kind of wake up in an adjacent room, which at least
Mm-hmm.
you're not waking up in the middle of an elevator shaft. So we'll give him credit for that. But Issa's knocked herself out on the bed, and you're gonna go like do a few things until she recovers.
Right.
I don't understand what we're doing at this point. Like, I literally wrote down Issa's right here. What am I doing? Like,
Well, but because we haven't found our person yet, because we're not looking for Issa. But I
but
guess at this point you hadn't thought,
I
yeah.
thought that we were because of the Adler comment on the Issa photo. So I was just so confused, and I was just like, why are we not just getting the hell out of
Yeah.
here at this point? Like,
Well, no, but the photo, I think, so the photo that we have that Adler saw did not have Issa in it. That was Alina, if I remember
oh,
correctly.
is that the
That's
issue?
why.
This is
Yeah.
the naming convention has just been getting me the whole time.
Yeah.
But
I have a list of the characters in here and I have a flow chart of what I believe their
smarts.
relationship is because I kept getting confused between them.
Can't wait
Um
to get a picture of that flow chart because I was thinking brunette anime girl. That must be Issa. Like I could not keep these characters straight for the life of me. So problem number one: Joel's
yeah.
memory of character names really bit him in the ass on this one.
Oh my gosh. But sorry, continue. So, I guess you're confused. You're just like, I'm confused. What are we doing
I
here?
was confused. Like, why are we not leaving? You find something though. I think right before she wakes up,
Hmm.
a dreamer notebook, and
Yes.
there's a lot in here that's kind of just like weird eldritch stuff. But the thing that struck me was this line that's something along the lines of, "When the dreamer moves, so does the world." And
Mm.
it came back to me like that feeling of like, is any of this happening in an external reality? Is this all happening in a character's head? And then is this world changing based on some conscious will? So like
Mm.
we're in this cave system. Is the cave stable? Does the cave change based on some like we've had this whole
Ooh.
time these references to like the red eye or the red something that's
Yeah.
down below. Then we had the thing about sleeping earlier, and it's just like I wonder if there's something that is like an entity that is changing people's perceptions of reality that is like somehow
Hmm.
connected into these minds.
Yeah, I think that is actually one of the big questions I left the game with is I could not decide for myself. And I think what the beauty of Signalis is that there's enough data and enough lore that you could argue either way where it's like is the red eye a actual like eldritch cosmic horror entity that is at the heart of a lot of this horror that's going on, or is that just a happenstance, a folk tale, something that people are placing, just uh, emphasis into, but it is actually not real. I feel like that's one of the things that I kind of went back and forth on.
I did not leave uncertain about that question personally, because
Really?
I mean, from my perspective, it is what's going on here. Like Adler is saying like it's a folk tale and whatever. And it's just
Mm-hmm.
like nothing. There is no linearity. There's nothing linear about what is happening in this space. The
No,
mutation
yeah.
of the creatures, the flesh that's everywhere. It's like
Well, but if it's
there's
not real, like what if it's all in their head and it's like maybe there's no cosmic horror, it's all actually just in their mind. I guess that's what I
oh,
was.
I see, I see, I
Yeah.
see. Yeah, possible. I don't.
Hmm.
Who knows? I guess that was my read of the ending was there is a cosmic horror entity here that is
Mm,
driving people to madness and is like the zombies are literal, like they are really here. You are
yeah.
really like stomping on a giant fleshy gross, I don't know, you're jumping down a flesh anus so that you can fight this boss. Like that's a real
Yeah,
flesh
yeah.
anus.
That's that's so fun. I think it's hard because I think the more I think about it, the more I go back and forth.
Mm.
I think at this point in time, I think it feels real to these characters, but ultimately I don't know if I would call everything we see reality.
Oh,
Um
I
yeah.
fully agree with that.
Yeah.
Because the world is shifting based on the dreamer. And so the question then is who is the dreamer and what's going on with that? But like I think reality is squishy here, but I think there is
Right.
something I think there's a real externality to that squishiness, if that
Mm,
makes sense.
yeah,
I don't know.
interesting.
So we eventually you do get back and
Yep.
Issa's awake and she
Yep.
hands you her rifle and then you go off on your merry way again. What am I doing? I don't know. Apparently now I'm looking for the blonde girl because it's not the brunette girl or the white haired girl. This is the grossest. This is the grossest section of a game I have played in a very long time.
Wait, let me catch up to where we are. Um yeah. Go on. Tell us why.
I so jumping down the flesh anus to fight the boss was just kind of the tip of the iceberg. Like you start going into rooms where the entire floor is this fleshy, you use the word fleshy, this fleshy grossness.
Mhm.
There are these microfiber mazes everywhere, which by the way, who set those up? Why? What purpose do they serve? Like it just was gross. Everything about it
Yeah.
was just like really gross to me. But you mix that with like the cultish atmosphere, like
Mhm.
when you finally do collect all these rings and you get to the poem about the empress
Yep.
and what's that, she got wedded and she got crowned and nothing and she wedded and she has a life and you put your like I was so like into the puzzles and the lore around this, but I
Mhm.
was so like I I'm really grossed out right now. And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. That was my
Yeah.
general take from this whole section of the game.
No, it's true. It is super super gross. I kind of loved it. I was like,
Oh yeah.
what I appreciate about this game throughout the entire thing is how atmospheric it is and how I can be disgusted and horrified and not have it be super jump scary.
Yeah,
And this
agreed.
section honestly, God, just real good. Like I was
Hmm.
ready. I was like, we have been going literally again descending into madness and finally we're like here. We're losing it at this
Yeah.
point. Um yeah.
And you find yourself eventually at like the bottom of like the red cave that we saw at the very beginning of the game.
Before that, I
Yeah.
wanted to highlight one thing. Um, and this is also a question I am leaving with having finished the game. I mean, technically, this is my second time. I did not remember any of this. So basically, it's a fresh playthrough. Um, I I have the question here. What is Alina? Who is Alina? Um, because in her diary entry number 4, she says she mentions remembering 2 lives.
Hmm.
Um, and so I was like, wait a second. I didn't think Gestalts had that. I thought that was a Replika thing.
Mm.
And so for me, this is like this put into question just who Alina is, and I still don't know. It's a question I have, but yeah, that was a big question. That diary entry, I have it circled because I was just like, this feels like it's a really important one, and I still don't quite know what to make of it, and I don't know what Alina's role is, even now having finished the game. Like, I know her role technically in this game, but I don't know, like, really
You
where
know,
she is in this.
I don't know if it was number 4. My takeaway from that diary entry that was around this part of the game
Mm-hmm.
was that she said her hair was turning white.
Yeah.
That was the thing for me that was like, oh, maybe she must be this other person. But I don't think that's what's actually going on here.
Yeah, well, okay. I have this other theory, and this comes up later. I think when there are a couple entries that we see later that talk a bit more about bioresonance,
Mm-hmm.
talk a little bit
Uh-huh.
more about the relationships with its gestalts
Yes.
specifically. And I had a question that I put where it's like, does every gestalt who manifests like with bioresonance does all of their hair turn white? Because I was like, is this something that happens when you are a person with this power? Because not every gestalt has this
Mm-hmm.
power. So that was another
Interesting.
question I had that I don't know if there was an answer, and I just didn't find it. But yeah, because yeah, one of my theories was, is Alina Ariane?
Hmm.
I'm not sure. Um, yeah, I don't know.
I I mean, I'm kind of tempted to just kind of jump to like the very end and just see if we can put the pieces together. And I
Yeah,
don't know. Because like the whole next section of this game, you kind of are repeating going through some things. Like there's definitely like linear stuff that we should talk about, but like
yeah,
her hair turning white to me that we learn in this part of the game firmly put me in the position of like, oh, she's turning into the blonde girl, which made me think like she is not the blonde girl. Like, and so I
yeah,
the whole this whole section of the game that we're about to like enter into, I'll be honest, felt really unnecessary to me. Like the game kind of resets after, well, and we'll talk about what leads up to this. Like the game kind of resets. You're back at the like first ship that you're exploring again, and I at this point was like, okay, the blonde girl that I'm looking for logically has to predate Alina's diary entry where her hair is turning white, which makes me think, and we already know that there's this issue where like brains are imprinting on other brains and whatever else.
right.
So maybe this is the bioresonance thing. But like my whole perspective at this point, and I think this carries through the rest of the game, is the white haired girl is somewhere alive and is reaching out and imprinting herself on beings and maybe
Mm-hmm.
imprinting other people on beings, which made me think that, like, oh, that would explain the duplicates of Elster that are at the bottom of the elevator shaft and whatever. What she's trying to accomplish, like at this point, I have no idea. But once I saw that journal entry, I was convinced that somewhere was the white haired girl and she was imprinting at least herself, but maybe other people onto these replicas.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, I mean, you were ahead of me in terms of like theorizing because I still had no ideas. I had no ideas whatsoever. I just felt like, yeah, I think my biggest closest thing I got to a theory was thinking that is it Ariane, and Alina. I was like, maybe they're the same person. Um, But honestly, there are timeline things that oh, okay, we're going to talk timeline in a little bit. Because we learn more about the timeline in that section that is that sort of repeat that I think provides a little bit of clarity to some of the roles and who people are and their relationships to one another. But true, before we do that, you mentioned we do see we're in a flesh hole that mirrors the hole that we fell went down the stairs
Yeah.
at the very beginning of the game. So now we go up, and this is where another one of those jaw-dropping, brain-melting moments happens, because who do we see but Adler and the gate in a entirely red planet. Which at this point I'm like, is it red because it's like that planet that's supposed to be red? I forget the name. I think it started with a K.
Rotfront.
Yeah, is it Rotfront? Is it like somewhere else? I don't know. Is this like a cosmic place that is now just like not a place that exists except in cosmic horror? Like, I don't know where we are. But Adler's here with a knife in his eye. I don't know the relevance of this, but it's the same eye that the soldier, we see a photograph of a soldier later, and it's like the same eye that she's stabbed in. So like that eye being stabbed is significant.
And like
We
the
talk about the
picture
red
maybe of yourself that's kind of like half destroyed over that eye. Like,
I kind of assumed it was our gestalt.
Okay,
that's what my theory is.
Yep.
Currently. But Adler says that it's impossible to move on. The commander, he talks about the commander going through the gate and not being the same after coming back. He specifically says no longer our beloved folk. And then Elster says doesn't matter and goes through the gate. And then I called this the Evangelion moment.
That's very good.
It's I think it like straight up took moments from Evangelion. I was like, I saw Evangelion. Technically, I also saw a Ghost in the Shell reference in there.
Sure.
Like, flashes of the painting again. Flashes of a water world, like the one of the other planets. I wrote Venetia ? A person with a hurt eye, kind of like Adler. Those are the ones I had time to write.
I had, who are you? Come closer. There are other Elsters that are dead. There's a crashed ship. Hive mind, different versions of the island. I'm shot. Wake up. Start of game.
Yep. Yeah, and then I wrote fake title screen. My save is gone. My eyes are dead. This is like some weird broken poetry, right? It's like so yeah. And I think if I had not, like, there are so many games that do this fake screen, I was like, I know exactly what's going on. Like, I get it. We just also had this with 1,000 Times Resist. Like, it's one of those horror tropes now that I just, if I'm playing a horror game and I see a title screen, I'm always like, let's just go back in just to be safe. What's weird is when we go back in, honestly, this is actually one of my favorite parts of the game.
I agree with this. Yeah.
We are back at Penrose, but we're not crashed. It looks like we are pre-crash by quite a bit of time because it's brightly lit. There is no blood. And we have our Elster duties to do, and the cryo chamber isn't full because there's another person on the ship. And it's the best part of the game, I swear. It is.
I 100%
it's the only
agree.
happy part.
It's the only happy, beautiful moment. You all of your systems are a go. You go from room to room and you check your maintenance list, and there are no leaks. Your flight controls are working. Everything's happy. And then you open a door to, I guess, like the mess hall or something. And who do you see there? I wrote Issa.
Wrong.
Not Issa.
No. That is something we do know definitively. We can
Yeah.
say we came out of this with one fact.
Um yeah. So, it's Ariane.
Ariane, yeah.
Ariane is there, and first of all, calls Elster her, which I think is the first time we get a pronoun for Elster, as I recall, like in the
Yeah,
game.
I think I can't remember if in the logs they've ever used them, but um yeah, I guess it's definitely the first conversation we've had really with anyone
Yeah.
that
One of the things that's interesting is as you're exploring the shift, doing your maintenance checks, you find little notes about Elsters and
Yep.
their care and feeding, if you will. And there are things like don't talk about war, don't make friends with them, don't watch movies with them, don't listen to music with them,
Don't
and
show them photographs
don't show
of
them
the war
photographs of the war.
and veterans.
And eventually you find diary entries that show that, okay, so first of all, that document was never opened. It was unsealed,
Yeah.
and you unseal it to read the care and taking of yourself. And then you
Mhm.
later, or you before that, find a diary that's like, oh, here's all the fun things I like to do with Elster. And like, whoops, we've been doing all of them.
Yes. Um yeah, it's really honestly so beautiful.
It's really gorgeous.
Because you have these two people and um so from my knowledge, and this is partially what I knew then, but also I've pieced together and like thought about it post playing the game, it seems like from my understanding Ariane um was basically sent to middle military school or sent to military service.
Mhm.
But she mentioned like this is kind of the first opportunity she's had to sort of be herself in a space. So even though she's lonely, she's getting to do art, which previously she wasn't really encouraged to do art. We actually later see like a teacher's note that's like, we hope the military like beats her and beats some sense into her. It's like super violent. Um, and so she's getting to do art, watch movies, and the boredom though and the loneliness is what initiated her to be friends with Elster. And they have a really loving relationship. They're partners, like they are romantically involved, and it's so beautiful. And we join them when they're celebrating their like 3000th anniversary cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I'm like, how long is a cycle? Like, what is a cycle? They don't really say, other than it's like um they just mentioned they calibrated it to be closer to the Venetian cycles, which is like 6% different than what the ship originally was supposed to be, but we don't know what that means.
Yeah.
um let's see.
And she
Also
has
we
a
learn
painting.
here we oh yes, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we find her, she's next to her painting of this
Yep.
Isle of the Dead, which we've seen repeatedly. So again, just
Yep.
like pulling that motif forward as well.
Yep. She also mentions in the same note where she's like, I set the clock to be like closer to Venetian time. Um, we learn that she knows Erica and Issa.
Yes.
And this for me then made me confused because if she knew Issa, is like, do they know each other through military service? Like, how do they know each other? Um, but it seems like they knew each other when they were younger. And this is like when timelines started feeling weird to me because I'm just like, if this is pre crash, how long ago was this before the crash? Because if it was a long time ago, 3,000 cycles, I don't know. How are these folks at Rotfront? Like, how are they still alive? Depending on like what I 3,000 cycles felt like a lot to me. I should have maybe mathed it out
I
if
just
a
assumed it
cycle
was
was a day.
days.
Yeah.
So that'd be like, what, 9 years or something like that?
Yeah. So I was kind of like, what is the timeline here? I'm not sure, but we do know now that Ariane knows Issa and Erica.
The relationship between, I would love to see your flowchart here because the relationship between Issa, Erica, and Ariane, I never could understand. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
find several notes from like kind of all three of them at different points that
Right.
indicate their connection to each other, but like I could not put those puzzle pieces together at
Yeah.
all.
We do learn about it when we're exploring the Rotfront, like apartment blocks.
Mm.
So basically, Ariane was sent to live with her aunt, who was, I think, the radio station flashback. That was the one
Mm.
where that was like all snowy. Or no, that was when she was with her mom. But then she was sent to Rotfront to be get prepared for like military school or something. And that's where she met Erica and Issa.
Hmm.
And then she worked at the photo.
The
Yeah, she worked at
photo
the
shop,
photo
photo
shop.
development shop or
Um,
something.
yeah. And then Erica and Issa were like working at the bookshop that their parents owned. And Erica and Issa are twin sisters.
And they all kind of look alike or something, right? Isn't that like there was a letter we find at some point, like, and I'm assuming it was Ariane that's writing home. She's like, oh, can you believe how much we look like these two? Like we could all be
No,
sisters or
so
something.
this is where the connection happens that I'm just like, all right, what's going on? So Ariane worked at the Photoshop. She, let me flip to the right page. So as she was developing photos, she saw a photo of these military veterans, these soldiers, and was like, whoa, I look like one of them. That's kind of a weird coincidence.
Mm.
Um, and in the photo, we know one of the people, um, but we don't know the other. And so, yeah, but Alina is just a girl who saw a photo, and the photo is not of Erica or Issa. So that's just,
I don't know what's
yeah.
happening. Okay. So what I do want to call out too, like you get a really touching moment of them dancing together on
Mm-hmm.
their anniversary, and that was just like such a pleasant break from the like putting pieces together to try and figure out what was going on.
Yeah. Um, oh, Alina was in the military. That's why. Alina was the first photograph in the military, the veteran. And I think that's, oh, okay. I feel like I'm so close. I'm so close. Sorry. I'm just like looking at my
No.
flow chart. I'm just like, but yes, the moment of them dancing is really sweet. I think what's really sad is we learn later that the 3000 cycle is also the cycle that the Empire says, hey, if you have made it to the 3000 cycle and you haven't found anything, basically you've done your service. We're not going to support this ship anymore. The Replika has instructions to basically help facilitate your doom and facilitate your end. You just have to tell it to don't fight. We're not going to send you food. We're not going to have any resources given to you. Just know that you did your part for the government, basically is what they say.
Oh, it was so brutal. That was
Yeah.
so brutal.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Oh man, I lost my spot.
But we do eventually. Was there anything else from this kind of scene that you wanted to call out before we flash to a very different experience?
um, let's see. No, I think that is pretty much it for this, like the one cozy reprieve we get before everything really starts to go downhill.
Yeah, because this isn't the end of the game. You haven't achieved a happy ending. In fact, this is a memory. And the next thing that's going to happen is you're going to flash back to what we consider the present at this point.
Yeah.
You're in the middle of the Red Desert. A long-haired Ariane finds you on the ground in some form or fashion,
Mm-hmm.
telling you to wake up. And you eventually make your way to the ship. I can't. Is it the Penrose? Is that the name of the ship?
Yes. Yeah.
And you find a broken down version of yourself on the ground and harvest its parts so that you can be ready for the rest of this game.
Yeah. And before you head into and like harvest the parts from the other Elster, which is interesting because that Elster has a white chest piece instead of like a reddish chest piece. You see notes and you don't have you don't have a sense of who it is. Later we find out it's Ariane, but these notes are about everything hurting, losing your teeth, just being so tired and wanting to sleep, and just like notes that document just like long suffering from whoever this author is. We don't know at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we then we see the Elster with the white plating. We take all of their stuff. And when we go back, I also noticed that the notes change when you walk back through. They continue to just say a lot of stuff about suffering, but I was
Oh,
like, oh,
really?
the note changed. So also feels like that's not something that happens in reality. Um,
I did not notice that.
yeah.
Hmm.
Um, and when we go into the cryo chamber, we do not see a person, but this like beating mass that looks kind of like a
Fleshy.
heart,
Yeah.
you know, um, or like a cocoon. Like I don't know if something's inside it, but um, yeah. And then we get a question. Eventually, we can't open our inventory. We can't do anything, and basically we can leave. And the question's like, "Do you want to go on?" And it's like, "I guess." There's no other option.
I certainly didn't see any other option.
Yep.
Uh, you do end up on the beach again at this point, though.
Mm-hmm.
And I made my way to the right this time, and there was a red boat to hop onto, and that was when I got close enough to the rocks that I could see that like that does indeed look like the Isle of the Dead off in the distance.
Yeah.
Was that also your experience this phase?
I focused more. I was also like looking at the skulls on the ground. I was like walking on the shoreline, and like at first I was like, what are these white things? Like, are they like sand dollars or what? And the more you walk, they actually illuminate themselves and like show different angles, and you see that you're walking with all these skulls on the ground. And the presence of red. I think it's the first time we see also the red light
Mm.
in this area. So again, it's like this pervasive sense that whatever the red eye or whatever cosmic horror is here, it's like getting closer. So definitely ominous. And then this is like the next what? All caps, question mark, exclamation point, because we wake up again, flash present, I don't know, into the bathroom that we started our exploration of Ling Orbital Serpinski in. But the bathroom has more flies and more blood, and everything has continuously gotten more fleshy and gross.
It's not good.
No.
I would say if I were to rate that bathroom experience, it would be poor.
Yes. I mean, I don't like public bathrooms generally. I feel like I don't know. I always just like, I don't like using them. I prefer the comforts of my home, and
It's fair.
so,
It's totally fair.
yeah. And so I think, yeah, no, I would not go to that one.
So I'm gonna just come out and be very honest. This next section of the game, you go through. What's the name of the ship that we're on, or this like mining facility?
Ling
Laying
Orbital or
orbital.
Serpensky. Sorry,
Sapinski.
Serpensky.
Yes, I hated this part of the game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It took me. I had a walkthrough guide. I didn't go to a single unnecessary thing, and it took forever. And I felt like this whole section didn't add anything to my experience except for frustration. Like, I didn't feel like I
Interesting.
was learning
Yeah.
much. Like, I didn't feel like the notes were telling me much about what was happening in the world. And so,
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm replaying like spaces, and like, there are spaces that you see for the first time, right? It's not
Right.
one for one the same, but like, it didn't feel like I was actually like any progress was being made as I was playing this whole section.
Interesting. This is, I think, the section that I felt for me. This is actually the section where I stopped and started making my flow chart because I felt like I was starting to understand who these characters were. Like,
Mm.
I don't think it registered to me that like Erica and Issa were twins until this part. I don't think I understood that Ariane and the twins were friends until this part. So I think for me, this is actually where I started to understand a little bit more because
Mm.
um yeah, up until this point, I think I had no idea what the dots. I had the dots, but I didn't know how to connect them. And while I'm still connecting the dots and I still don't know exactly what we experienced and everything, this is where I felt like the synthesis was starting to happen a little bit more. Um but it is not easy to like parse out. They
Mm.
don't just like straight up say stuff. And so I think the feelings that you have are definitely valid. Um,
Should we talk about what we learned during this section?
yes.
Um, one of the things that I thought was particularly interesting is this is the first time where you, as a Replika, use what I would consider like Replika abilities. You can like
Hmm.
download files to your brain. Like,
Right.
I thought that was very interesting and something that
Yeah.
I was like, oh, like you're really connecting some dots for me now. I liked learning about like gestalts as kind of original people that eventually get scrubbed from history and then imprinted onto brains to make replicas. I thought that was like a really interesting concept or idea. The
Hmm.
scrubbing from history really plays into like the fascist undertones of what's happening
Yeah.
here in a way that like I did not expect them to tie back to, and I thought that was really really cool.
Hmm. I think, yeah, I completely agree. I think one of the things that I noted, and I wish I could remember, because also I played this section late at night, and so that definitely did not help. And I didn't write down, but I think you start this section in Sierpinski, but when you're in like the apartments and you're going through the computer, I don't think you're in Sierpinski. I think you're in Rotfront at that point.
So
And so
yeah, so good.
yeah, so I think is that what your understanding was? Like once you're like in the apartment area exploring what I believe is like the Ito apartments, and like the shops and everything, that's on Rotfront.
My perspective is we've been on Rotfront the whole time, and that
Oh.
everything else has been like projections and alterations
Yeah,
to help essentially call us as we get to the end of this game, like call us to our ultimate conclusion.
right. But yeah, I think because like we started in the bathroom and we know the bathroom is in Sierpinski. And so it was like there was a scene change essentially, whether it was in our
Hmm.
mind or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so the fact that we're on Rotfront, I was like, okay, now we're learning about like the childhood essentially of like these women, these girls. And so
Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought
that's
about it like that.
yeah, because so we get a lot of lore about sort of the atmosphere of the world. As you're looking in the
Mm.
computer, you can see emails. There's a lot of discussion about an imperial spy, and I think what's really interesting is we see a request and we don't know, I didn't write down. We see a request for relocation and the response from like the general is a no.
Mm.
Um, and we get the sense that the bookshop especially is a place that's like really fraught and a little bit like it puts this family, the Ito family, under a bit more suspicion because so many books are banned. And so um, we have these two girls, their parents own the bookshop. We have Ariane, who works in the photo clerk sort of realm, but Ariane loves art, loves books, and that's how she connects with the other girls. And from my understanding, um, like Ariane was also quite bullied, which I think we saw.
Oh, in that
Um,
earlier
I think
cutscene.
that's what we saw in the earlier cutscene was her being
Oh,
bullied.
interesting.
And
Okay.
so like in addition to being bullied and in addition to like liking art, like she's kind of this sort of loner. Like she's called sort of like strange by her teacher.
Mm.
That's something we learn here. um let's see, we see the island painting again. I wrote down that we see it in an apartment, and part of like one of our quests is to find like the solution to help dissolve the paint.
Yeah, that was
um
interesting.
and the tarot cards that we start to collect in this section all look like the replicants and or look like the girls that we've been interacting with this whole time. Like
Mm.
in the painting is the tarot card the lovers, and I was like, I mean, this looks like Esther and or Elster and Ariane to me.
Yeah, right, totally.
um yeah, so this whole section for me was just like lore about Ariane, about her friends Issa and Erica, and how they like had their childhood together. And then I think from my understanding, Ariane was assigned after military school to the Penrose program. And so she was sent away, and we don't know what happened to the other girls at this point. I have
So were
theories
they
later, but
raised on Rotfront? Or I thought they were raised on
I think they were born in Venetia and then came to Rotfront. Um, I think
Interesting.
I think Ariane was born on Lang and originally was on from Lang Orbital. I think Erica and her sister Issa, I think they were born in they were Venetian. I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Veneton.
Veneton, yeah.
Venatonese. I think the thing that
Venetia.
stood that like the unanswered question for me with all of this is like,
Yeah.
okay, my perspective is we are on Rotfront. We've been on Rotfront since the beginning of this game.
Right.
Has Rotfront ever been fully habitable? Like we learn about the folklore and that the locals believe in this red eye and yada yada. So someone has lived here. And
Mhm.
my perspective of this kind of apartments and living situation is that this is all like figments of reality manipulation to
Mhm.
pull Veneton, whatever the other planet was, like
Like Venetia, yeah.
Venetia, those elements into this space to help us understand and connect to like the ending character experience that we're
Mhm.
going to get. But like what I can't piece together is when did Rotfront go from, oh yeah, locals live here to Red Desert,
Right.
Eldritch Horror, whatever? Like,
Right.
did Ling Orbital crash here? Did the Penrose crash here? Like,
Well, Ling
how?
Orbital, I think, well, Ling is a planet, and so I think Ling Orbital a
I
ship?
thought Ling Orbital was a ship that was orbiting Ling that somehow crashed on Rotfront. But like, I could be way wrong about that.
Oh
I
man,
could
now
be
I'm getting
incredibly
confused.
wrong about that.
Yeah.
But I mean, but also it's been mined. Like there's a mine here. So like, when did civilization exist on Rotfront? Where in physical space are we while we are on this? I'm assuming we're on this planet, but like I could be wrong about that too.
Right.
I don't know. Like
Well, because I think the
yeah.
mines, I don't know what's happening in our mind, but I think the mines themselves are on Ling. Like, I don't, that's where I'm just like, which is, I think I mentioned this last week. I don't think a lot of this game takes place like Rotfront is the snowy place, and I think the mines are on Ling, and there's the Venetia, that planet, that's the watery one that we've seen
Uh-huh.
flashes in some of the cutscenes. And I think the red planet, I can't tell if that's like, I think it started with a K, but I'm like, I don't know if that the red that we're seeing is from that planet or if that's from Cosmic Horror Nightmare
Mm.
World. So like I think while maybe
What was the snow
the
planet?
rot front.
So I think that is the snow planet. Like it
Yes.
is red when the storm comes over it. They talk
Yeah.
about like the storm that's always going around it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. But yeah, I agree. I think like on a technical like real level, I think the game takes place entirely on Rotfront. Like physically, I think everyone's in Rotfront, but I think mentally we are being transported into different places because of bioresonance and all of these powers that we're talking about. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
Got it. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Well,
So
it
that's what
makes
I
as
mean when
much
I'm
sense
like,
as I can make of anything.
yeah, I think that's why, like in reality, I don't think we're getting further than like the Penrose and like our ship. But I think whatever is happening, there is bioresonance, which we haven't talked even about what is bioresonance and what's going on there. But
Mm,
like, I think that is what is helping transport us because the person in the cryo chamber, which is Ariane, wants us to keep a promise. And I think what shifts for me is we go from saying, okay, who is she and who are we looking for, to once we know it's Ariane, once the game shifts its title screen and we know that's who we are looking for,
mhm.
it becomes what is our promise? And like, what are we trying to remember to do? that for me is like the big switch that happens with this game.
Interesting. So the promise did not register for me at all throughout this game. Like,
Even with
keeping a
all of the
promise,
flashing, reminding screens of remember your promise.
maybe it's
Literally.
maybe like I just happened to be writing notes during the cutscene and like looking down when the promise came up. But like, that's why at the beginning of this episode when you're talking about the promise, like, what are you? I don't know what we're
That's
talking about.
so funny.
Like, it did not even occur to me that that was like a significant part of it. I don't have the word promise written down one time in my notes anywhere, and I have
Oh my
more
God.
notes on this game than any game we have played this year.
Oh, that's so funny. So yeah, that's probably that probably has impacted some of the theories then, I would guess. Probably.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um but yeah, sorry. I kind of devolved into just like a bunch of lore because like this section I think for me is the most confusing in terms of like initially when I was writing down some of the notes and screenshotting, I was just kind of like I don't understand how all of this really connects. But I think this is the section where if you are slower with it or you go back and look at the lore, it ends up being the place where things start to actually add up.
Mm.
Like I think this is where I sent myself the screenshot. So actually here, maybe if I can like put it in Discord so you can see it too. Because maybe this will help clarify because the photograph is the thing that I keep getting stuck on. Let's see. It was 9 screenshot. Okay. So I'm going to send this to you in Discord.
Okay.
So what I'm sending for everyone who's listening is a screenshot I took of the photograph that we see at the not the very beginning of the game when we're Penrose Elster, we're like in the Serpensky, and this is the photo with the veterans. So in this photo, we have 2 figures. The one on the left has a missing eye, and the one on the right has like the 2 barrettes, and the one on the right is who we know as Alina So. Alina So looks like Ariane. And that's why Ariane, when she was developing this photo, was like, maybe I joined the military. I don't know. We kind of look alike. Isn't this a weird coincidence? Which, what was the word that we talked about the very first episode where it was like coincidences that may or may not just mean nothing? Oh my God, what was the word? I'm blanking.
I don't know.
But yeah, it's one of those coincidences that I think convinced Ariane to like pursue this military thing or like go with it even if it wasn't what she loved, and that's why she's like doing the Penrose now. I think that's what started this journey for her, but I don't think Alina beyond that, I don't know if she holds more significance as like the initiator and now is like I don't know, I'm still confused on Alina. I think that's my big question. We don't know who the other person is definitively. I think it's Lilith Ito, which may be the mom of Erica and Issa, which, if that's the case, that means this photograph happened a long time before Ariane. A generation.
That didn't even occur to me as a possibility.
Right. So this is why I'm so confused and like not confused, but I feel like I am grasping just before the straw. You know what I mean? I'm just like not even grasping at straws. I'm grasping before the straw. So I feel like there's this weird time something I'm not taking into account properly yet, but it feels like this photograph of the veterans of Alina and I think maybe Lilith, because again, it's like if the photograph is here, I would assume it was Lilith's because she owns the shop and like that makes sense to me. But I'm like, this is a generation before these other girls. And that to me is important. I don't know how or why, but I feel like that's significant in terms of like
Yeah.
trying to timeline this out.
Should we talk kind of end game at this point? Like, you know, we go through
Yes.
this area. Eventually, you get to a you teleport to a area called home.
Yeah.
Which you kind of get a moment to explore a little apartment before the big boss battle, and you kind of run into Adler one more time. Um, any big takeaways on this experience leading to the boss battle before we get to
I
our
mean
endings?
I, the battle with Falk is incredible. Um, so Falk says, "Let us become whole again," and I think it goes back to this idea of the hive mind. Somehow, Falk feels like an extension of this Elster. Their minds are somehow connected, and so um, this was like this is sort of the defeat God moment. It felt
Mm-hmm.
like, in terms of just like the scale of this battle. This is like final battle vibes.
And you also realize at this point that you are Falk.
Yes,
Like Elster is Falk.
they are all one. Like everyone is everyone at this point.
We are
Like,
one.
yeah,
Which is has to be a reference to Paranoid Android by Radiohead. Like now we are one. Um, and Adler is actively trying to prevent you from doing this again. Like you have been doing this and trying to get to this final battle, through this final battle repeatedly.
right.
Um, and you kind of walk past a littered field of yourselves on the ground through this. Any other takeaways from that like big boss battle experience?
It was really intense. I loved that sort of the room environment changes as you go through the battle stages. It's glitchy. The entire time you're battling, like the warnings pop up, you know, the Achtung and like all of that. So it feels very like I felt like my mind was glitching a little bit when I was going through this battle, and it mimicked what I feel like this perspective of us being in this sort of like system.
Mm.
I've mentioned like I feel like the loading screens in the game, like we're like our minds are loading screens. It feels like this computer parallel has been just even more pronounced here, and I love that. Um, I also thought it was interesting that Adler now looks like full zombie mode. Like Adler doesn't have a
Half
face.
a
He even
face.
says
Yeah.
earlier, he's like, I've taken off the mask. I hate everything. And he calls us a selfish monster if we go back. I was like, I just want to find my love. Like, stop. Let me be happy and in love. Like, come on. Um, but yeah, just I wrote cycles again and
Mm-hmm.
circled it.
Mm-hmm.
And we find an Ariane note here, or a sequence. And this is where we learn um, a bit more about like the significance of the 3000 cycle. I think this is where I made the actual connection that we talked about earlier about making
Mm-hmm.
peace with your fate, is the way that they put it.
Yeah.
Um, this is also where we learn like cycle 225. Ariane writes, "Here I can finally be happy." Um, cycle 648 is when she like starts talking more to Elster. So I was just like, it was nice to see just this glimpse of happiness once more before we really get into sad stuff. Um, at cycle 5K is when I wrote down um, the suffering has really become pronounced. So she writes, "If one of us, what happens if one of us dies? Let me sleep. She isn't ending it." Oh, she didn't write that. I wrote, "She isn't ending it." We're 5K cycles in and she has not. Like either Ariane hasn't ended it or Elster hasn't ended it. And this is where I felt like Elster was the one who is supposed to end it for Ariane. And this is where my theory is the promise is that Elster was supposed to let Ariane like pass away and stop the suffering, and she's not ending it.
So which ending did you get? What was it titled?
It was titled Promise.
You got the
What was yours?
promise ending.
Yeah, what was yours titled?
Memory.
Ooh.
Uh
So, do you want to read what yours was? For folks listening, this game apparently has 4 endings, 3 normal and a secret. I have
hmm.
not gotten the secret ending, nor have I watched it. I actually kind of want to go back and maybe play the game again and get the secret ending with a guide. Um, so yours,
Mem-
memory.
the synopsis reads as follows: Elster finds Ariane in the cryogenics pod and wakes her up. Ariane is unable to remember Elster or their promise. Elster stays by Ariane's side until she succumbs to her wounds, while Ariane remains alive. So
Mm.
I don't know what the promise is or was. I didn't know it mattered.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, that's interesting. So I wonder then if my theory is correct. Because if you do not, so let me say my ending. So my ending was promise. Basically, once you get into the cryo chamber, you see Ariane alive in the cryo chamber, just like floating. In this one, what's interesting, yours says she doesn't recognize you. In my ending, she did know me. She said Elster. So she knew my name before I could say anything. Um, Elster said, I can't do it. She responds, you have to do it, please. And we end up killing Ariane by choking her in the cryo chamber. After she dies, we lie next to her and we also die. So this is why also it reinforced for me personally, because the ending was called Promise. I think the promise is supposed to be like, you are supposed to be the one that finishes me.
Yeah.
And I think because Ariane messed with my function, like gave me the photographs, danced with me, did art, I think that made it impossible for me to like do it properly
Mm.
initially.
Interesting. I
Yeah.
would love to see a timeline of like chronological events of this game. I'm gonna find one and bring it to the group discussion
Yeah.
because like my theory on all of this is that at some point after your ship's life support systems kind of went on hold, she went into cryo sleep.
Mm-hmm.
The ship crashes on Rotfront, and the red eye kind of merges or starts using the sleeping Ariane as an avatar. And basically, Ariane is the one that is facilitating the bioresonance with all of these replicas that are going bad, trying to rebuild and re-imprint Elster so that Elster can eventually find her and kill her.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much on board with that. I think so. I think for me, what I think happened is Ariane ended up celebrating like the 3000th cycle, and she knew what was going to happen, but for some reason did not give the instructions to Elster to stop like the journey,
Mm.
basically, to end everything. And so Ariane got sick, and I think they alluded to the fact of like nuclear or like radiation or like something was making her sick on the Penrose. And I think what happened is Elster, following the Elster instructions and like the ship's instructions, because it said like, if your gestalt gets sick, put her in the cryopod. And that's why she put us or Ariane in the cryopod. And then that's what prevented Ariane from dying. And then somehow, I don't know what the crash, I think maybe we just like happened to crash. I
Yeah,
don't think, yeah.
I agree. Yep.
Um, but I think because Ariane was in the cryopod, yeah, she was left to suffer. And so, yeah, then she used her bioresonance to like try and make Elster remember, like, no, you're supposed to be done. You're supposed to like finish me off, um, personally. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think, okay, timeline of the game. I think taking perspective of Ariane, because she is like, I think the more that I think about it, she's our main protagonist in this game. Like Elster is the vehicle through which we experience the story, but I think Ariane is the main character,
Hmm.
from the narrative
Oh, I
sense.
love that.
I think, God, it's like trying to piece together so many things. I think Ariane was young. She lived with her mom, And because she lived with her mom and wasn't socialized in the barracks or the bunks, of the military empire or whatever, she grew up appreciating a lot of things that people weren't supposed to, like
Mm.
books, art, music, etc. And because of that, she ended up getting sent, because we saw the letter. Oh my God, we saw the letter on the radio station in one of the first Rotfront flashbacks, where I think it was the mom who wrote the aunt who was like, could you take her in? Or like, could we send her to you
Mm.
to get like training to like get her back in line or something like that? And so after Ariane was raised by her mom, she went to live on Rotfront. When she lived on Rotfront, she went to school, didn't do great, still was isolated because she was kind of strange compared to everyone else. But she made friends with Erica and Issa. Um, those three became friends. They worked at the photo shop, the bookshop. There's a lot of Imperial spy stuff happening. I feel like I still haven't settled that out, but yeah, they grew up. I don't know what happened with Issa and Erica. I feel like that's a whole thing that we didn't talk about. There's like a whole line and a scene that we haven't mentioned yet, but we'll put that aside. With Ariane, she ended up getting assigned to Penrose. Um, I think her interest in she's not interested in bioresonance, but she is identified as bioresonant capable, because then one of the notes we got, there's someone who's like, oh, the clerk who works at the Photoshop is bioresonant, and I think they know I'm a spy, so I'm going to go. And so it's like people know she's bioresonant
Mm.
too. So that also kind of means that people are afraid of bioresonant people. That's like, there's a little bit of a stigma there. Um, yeah. She's then assigned to military service. She applies to Penrose, gets into Penrose, and even though she doesn't like necessarily love this idea of being in military service, she like takes it anyways. Um, and that's when she gets on the Penrose and everything happens there. That is, I think, at least Ariane's timeline.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't know why we would see Issa. I don't know why we would see Issa. Like, why is Issa at Sierpinski? I think that's for me. That's another question that now as I'm talking through everything, I'm like, why is Issa showing up? Um, is it because like if Ariane is controlling memories and Issa is a part of her memories, is this like, is Issa real? Because also, actually, hold on. Um, earlier when we were exploring home, we do see Issa, and doesn't she like die before our very eyes? She like disintegrates.
Yeah, she
That was something that
disintegrates.
happened. Yeah. And so then I was just like, what? That's weird. And then she disintegrates next to her shrine, which they have the pictures of her and her sister. And those are like death shrines, like memorial shrines. I'm
Yeah,
like, why would
right.
they have this if she hasn't died yet?
Yeah.
I don't know. So,
I
like, why is she
I'm
here? I don't even think she should be.
one thing that's possible is that this crash happened on Rotfront after the point of like civilization kind of degrading. And the reason everything is so fleshy is that Ariane is like building all of these things, trying to like build these entities herself, like fleshing them together, puppeting them. I
Wait,
don't know.
building which entities?
All of them. Like none of them are real.
Yeah, well, I think I agree with you there. I think she's building all of this to try and remind us of our promise. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, and like building the
Yeah.
Elsters too. Like I think Rotfront is producing all of these beings until one is able to make it to the ship where she is still
Mm-hmm.
there to
Yeah.
kill her.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, with all of the cycle, like the references to the cycles, and like we see the
Yeah.
Elsters in the elevators. Yeah, for sure.
So then it's
Um,
like the reason everything's broken down sometimes is because like civilization is no longer on Rotfront. There aren't
mm-hmm.
people there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I have only questions. I have
Yeah.
only questions.
I feel like I don't know. I feel like it's so close. All I know though, just to like finish out, because I think at this point I want to go and like watch theory videos more than anything. I want to replay the game because with the fourth ending, that is like the secret ending. I'm curious if we get any more clarifying
Mm.
lore. But I do just feel like I know you weren't super hot on this game, at least the ending section of it, but I feel like I really love that it's forcing me to think and it's forcing a replay, at least for me. And ultimately, even though it's like really tragic and not super positive, I think I would have been sad if we actually had an happy ending. I think
Oh
the
yeah.
ending that I got, for me at least, felt really, it felt fitting for the playthrough for me.
Yeah, no, I liked all of the story beats. It was the
Mm-hmm.
game, it's playing the game itself for the second half that felt like drudgery to me. So
Mm.
overall, like, would not play again, but did really enjoy the story. Did really enjoy the story elements of it. I thought were great.
Mm-hmm.
Even like the lack of certainty about what's going on, like I don't mind that. I love not knowing what's going on in a story. It was really just like it the second half of the game just felt like puzzles for puzzles sake instead of puzzles to understand the world. So that was kind of where I
Mm.
got.
Interesting. Yeah. No, I think that's good feedback, good critique. Um, are there any last thoughts you wanted to share about Signalis? Takeaways, favorite moments, anything like
I
that?
I had a lot of favorite moments. I am also going to be doing some deep dives on theory vids, and like I literally have opened up the timeline wiki of what is actually happening because
Yeah. Oh
I
my
am like
gosh.
I'm at the point now like I want some definition of how the artists perceive this story should be going. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I feel like I can't remember if it was for this one or maybe it was a different game, but I feel like I read something where the developers were like okay with all like I don't think they had a definitive because they wanted people to keep like speculating. So I think that's
Good.
also really
I love that.
exciting too. Um but yeah, I don't know, maybe that was a different game, but yeah, cool. Well, that is it for the podcast discussion, but clearly we still have a lot to go over. Again, we didn't talk about a lot of the ISA threads that were happening and the ISA lore. So if you would like to join for an in-person conversation with a lot more people who have multiple playthroughs under their belt, come into the Discord on October 26th, 2024, if you're listening to this maybe in the future, and it's at 3 p.m. Pacific time. Just make sure you have the Geeks and Grounds role when you hop into the Discord, and you'll get the notification. We'll set up the event, and that'll be there. But yeah, I'm very excited to talk to everyone about this because um, I think clarity, at least a little bit more clarity, is going to come from our conversations.
Yes, 100% agree. Also, definitely get your Steam Next demos under your belt. Like we'll be playing some and talking about them. Is that for next week? We'll be talking about our Steam Next playthroughs.
Yes. So Steam Next Fest is happening. So get those playthroughs in. Leave a voicemail at sayhi.chat/geeks and grounds or send an email to respond to the newsletter. And either way, we can either read out. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot. We need to answer one question, one closing question from
A
um,
closing
a
question.
community member, Val. So let me play it really fast. Let me know if you can hear this. It'll take 1 second, I think.
Hi, Jenny. Hi, Joel. It's Val. Now that you're a little further along, or maybe even finished with Signalis, I have a question for you. Among other things, Signalis is a game that's about replication. It has tons of references to other media through animations, images, textual references, etc. And I'm kind of curious how that landed for you all, because this game isn't just the game itself, it's a combination of a bunch of prior ideas put together in a new way. Did this work for you? Did you ever find it annoying or frustrating? Did you not notice some of the references until you sat down and did the podcast? I really love the show. Excited to hear about what you have to say on these questions. Stay dangerous, and remember, always keep your promises.
Yay. So thank you again, Val, for sending in that question. Joel, what do you think?
I First of all, I love a reference. And anytime I felt like I was picking up on something, I I deeply appreciated it. When I got to the like paranoid android lyric drop, I was like, this is one of my favorite lyrics in all of music and one of my favorite builds in all of music, and having it referenced in a truly meaningful way, like uh, and now we are one in everlasting peace line. I thought it was spectacular. I am certain that I missed a ton of references throughout. So for me, it absolutely worked whenever I noticed them. It didn't feel hokey or anything like that to me. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, I would say for me it worked. I don't know. What about you?
Mm-hmm. I found this is a really good question because when I sat down and thought more about it, I found it really interesting that there are a ton of references in this game, like not simply to other games, like there's Silent Hill, Resident Evil,
Mm-hmm.
a number of other media references as well. Like we talked about Evangelion, Ghost in the Shell, like your song reference. It has art, it has music, it has so much jam packed into it. And I would say normally I love Easter eggs, but I don't love it when games are super referential.
Mm.
Um, I think of games like, for example, I recently played The Plucky Squire, and I felt like while it was inspired by and referenced a lot of games that I loved, it ended up being a bit flat for me. And I
Mm.
was like, why did that fall flat? When Signalis definitely did not. Like I felt like it embedded those references really well. And I don't have a solid answer, but I think what Joel said about having it be meaningful and then building upon it are the reasons why I felt like Signalis worked. Where I was like, it's referential, but it's not depending on the reference to carry the rest of the material. And that's
Ooh,
why for
that's
me,
good.
yeah, I think that's why for Signalis it feels really rewarding to play, because you don't have to, like, if you did not know about the Isle of the Dead painting, if you did not if you haven't seen Evangelion, won't you don't need to know the reference to appreciate what's going on. But if you do, it adds that, like, it builds this trust of, oh my gosh, these developers really know what they're drawing from and really know what they're doing. So yeah, I feel like it's a weird murky line and a gray line that ends up being like, is it referential in a good way,
Mm.
or is it just like a love letter that is not building upon what's already there? And I think Signalis does well because it builds. um
I love that. That's a really
yeah,
good perspective. Like even like you have like, is it Mozart or something that's playing at one point, and it's like later that we learn like
yeah,
how music informs like what's happening with Elsters. Like
yeah.
it meant something to the story.
Hmm. So yeah, I think that was a great question because it got me thinking about, like, when do I like references and Easter eggs, and
Mm.
when do I find them annoying? Because sometimes they are annoying and a little hokey, and you're just like, okay, I get it. Why couldn't you have like done a little more? So yeah, really great question. Um,
Nice.
yeah, so yeah, sorry, I interrupted our housekeeping. But yeah, Steam Next Fest, leave us a voicemail. Um, if you can, try and leave that voicemail before um, Monday, October 21st at around noon, because otherwise we may not be able to include it just for the sake of time. But really, whenever you leave the voicemail, we'll do our best to include stuff. And yeah, I think that's it for housekeeping.
Thank you so much for joining us at Geeks and Grounds. Instead of being the change you want to see in the world, change the world to be the change that you want to be. I don't know. Bye.
And then do it again and again and again and
Do
again.
it again and again. Bye.
Bye. The Geeks and Grounds podcast is produced and edited by me, Jenny Wyndham. The logo is designed by Lee Thomas, and today's intro-outro song is Die Toteninse, which is from the Signalis OST. In addition to finding episodes across YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, you can hang with us on Instagram and Blue Sky at Geeks and Grounds, and reach out to us with questions, comments, thoughts, or feedback via our website at geeksandgrounds.com. Thanks again for listening.